And hey, everyone, how's it going? It is I, the real Randy Chavez. I'm coming at you today with a podcast number 249 with Tina Mani on AI, CEO of Unthink, crypto, and we have a bunch to talk about Hedera and AI and more. Everyone say hello to Dashi. Hello, Dashi. And Tina, how you doing today?
Very good. Awesome. Nice to see you.
Oh, yes, you too. You too. It's been a while. Well, it's been like a week. Um, we had a meeting last week, and we talked about I think just your company and how you're changing things for shopping, and we'll totally get into that. But first off, how are you today? I understand you just had a nice breakfast.
Yes, I did. How do you know?
I had a call with the person you had breakfast with this morning. It's like about other stuff, like, hey, we're doing this, doing X, Y, and Z, and then it's like, yeah, I'm actually having breakfast with Tina. I was like, oh, no way, she's on the podcast today. She's like, oh, well, cool.
Yes, yes,
So yeah, that was cool. So there's so much to talk about, and we only have an hour, so let's jump right in.
yes.
First off, before as we get into that, is computers, is all of this technology something that you were always interested in, or is it something that you figured out like kind of in high school and college that you were just good at, and you figured, okay, I'm really good at this, let's lean into it? Or do you always have that childhood curiosity of it?
I would say it's more to do with my background than my natural. I think it's the family that I was born into. So I am like, I was born more of like a dreamy, like look at the sky and walk into shit because I'm not watching the ground type of person. I enjoyed music and dance and everything. My parents are both engineers. My dad's a scientist. My mom's an engineer. And so, right from my age of 4 or 5, my dad used to give me a scientific explanation for everything. It's like, oh, why is the water? Why do you put salt in the water when you boil an egg? That kind of questions, right? So everything was related to physics and science and math. So that's how I got into it. And he got us a computer when I was in, I think, 10th grade at that time. And that was like very, very early. And so I learned basic programming and stuff like that. So it was more of a, I would say it's more because of my environment than my own natural self. Yes.
There's Neil deGrasse Tyson has a quote where he said, one day a little girl that was like super into science, and she said like, hey, I really like this stuff, but my parents always ask me or all adults were asking her what she wants to do when she grows up, and she didn't have an answer, and she asked him like, when did you know what you wanted to do when you grew up? And
Yeah.
he said the beauty about science is that you never have to grow up. You just
Yeah.
can continue asking all these questions. Do you feel that over the course of since you went to college and all that, that you have like grown up? When did you feel that? When you were, yeah, when did you feel that?
Yeah. Well, I think when I became more independent, like I got out of college, so everything happened sort of like one after the other. Born to Indian parents, you go for engineering or medicine. I like to go for medicine, but I was told it's a long journey, so I pretty much didn't pick my path until later. Like I got into it first, and then I realized that I used to like new stuff a lot. Like I think at my first job. Um, I was coding, and it was like okay, I was fairly good at it, but it didn't like really ignite my fire or anything. But then there was a call for people to join a 3G team when UMTS 3G was just starting out, and I was like, yay, I'd like to try something new. And I think the passion about doing new things that never existed before was something I discovered at that point of time, because nobody knew anything and we are all at level ground, right? So it was all about how curious are you to learn new things. And incidentally, all the people in my team, all the other people were like jumping for the coding intensive work things. And then I was put into configuration management. It was not considered to be cool among the nerds. But the great advantage was that I was able to talk to every person across all the departments, and so I knew the high level picture much better than each individual person did. So I discovered that, yeah, I like this. I like the product side from a high level perspective rather than nitty gritty coding kind of job. That's, yeah.
So speaking of perspective, recently Trump had rescinded the Biden executive order that was like a 100-page, like mammoth of regulations. So in your perspective, in your work with AI, has your work become easier since the lifting of that executive order, or is that something that hasn't really impacted you yet?
Not really. I don't think so. I think the good thing for me being in the AI industry is that everybody now knows about it, and everybody knows that it is something that is going to happen anyway. So you might as well know it more so that you can work in the new world rather than denying it and then being a stranger or being left out. So I feel like that's good, because when earlier when we first developed our first product deliverable before even ChatGPT came, and I used to show it to people and they're like, wow, this is cool, but there was a lot of skepticism about it. Now it's like everybody knows that it's there, and I think there'll be like people who use it and people who don't, and people who use it to their advantage. And I feel also like in a way that is not hurting the world, right? Like I feel like you need to, it's like a weapon now, it's like nuclear power, right? You need to have it so that you're not attacked or you're not on the receiving side, I feel.
There's a lot of talk about the regulations, like, because I think Elon Musk and Stephen Hawking, I think they co-authored a paper like years back telling like the leaders of the world, hey, AI can be an incredible tool, but it's much more powerful than you think. And we should regulate ourselves, or if you don't regulate it at first, it's going to become, you won't be able to control it.
Yeah.
And now some people are saying, well, China's not going to regulate it because they want to win the space, and Russia's not going to regulate it. What are your thoughts on regulations that the US should put on themselves? As you can get that doomsday scenario, but if you regulate too much, then China and Russia is going to win, and that's not going to be good for the US. It's a very complicated balance, and I'm just, as someone that works in that industry, what are your thoughts on it?
I think that regulation is important, but the problem is that the problem with regulation typically is that the policymakers know the least about the technology, and so because they are afraid to allow things, they disallow it by default. That's when it stifles innovation. So I feel like regulation is necessary, but there should be just like very, very broad guidelines. For example, okay, if you're doing something AI generated, can you point the sources of the data? Can you give credit to the people who contributed to the data? So I feel like that's, if you just do the basics, that's enough, because I don't think not developing AI is an option anymore. I mean, it's too late. I feel it's like the bird has already flown. So
it's flown the coop.
Yeah.
So it was a couple of years. So this happened like twice. Once where the like Congress was like questioning Mark Zuckerberg on just like Facebook, saying like, if I'm on the Wi-Fi, can Facebook access my phone? And it was one of the most embarrassing things that Congress had ever done, because it showed their intellectual ineptitude for technology. And you have all the politicians in like China that are very technologically like intelligent. And then recently it happened with TikTok as well, where Congress is like kind of questioning him, like, are you from China? He's like, Senator, I'm Singaporean. And it's like, it was rough. Do you think there should be some more qualifications that, if you're going to make policy on this, should you have more weight as a vote? Should a politician have more weight if their degree or their background is in technology or in any of the STEM fields? Or does that give, because I mean, like, everyone in politics is like lawman, like businessman, lawman, and there doesn't seem to be like any like teachers or scientists, and like the rest of life is just left out.
Yeah. I think even if they are not directly technologically competent, I think they should at least have very strong advisors who have not only the position to advise, but also a little bit more say in the matter. So I'm not necessarily saying that all politicians should be technically savvy, but they should have the right advisors. And I feel like it should also be that advisors are not necessarily, it's not all like economically motivated, right? I mean, if you get advisors who are who like the biggest companies like Facebook and Meta, they're all the advisors, right? Then there's you're sure that the policy is not going to be it could be biased commercially as well. So that's what I feel. Like in terms of AI, I feel more like um, in a way, this is a very good thing because earlier AI was in the hands of just the top companies. And for example, if you look at social media, right, you have Facebook, Google, they own the data. The internet was not supposed to be like a centralized system. When it started, it was like universities and it was like a fun project and it's like giving access to everybody, enabling everybody. But it sort of went the other way where you have like Facebook, Google, Meta, all these guys are controlling all the data and all the money. Now brands have to pay money to them. People have to, it's ads. So it becomes like too much control in one place. So I feel like the fact that AI became mainstream thanks to ChatGPT, for example, is that everybody knows about it and it can empower so many people now. So I look at it somehow, for me being an entrepreneur, I'm more of a like growth mindset. I look at the bright side of things more. So I just feel like, this is wonderful because now whatever only a handful of companies could do can be done by anybody. And that's highly empowering. I feel like that's how the world should be in the first place.
There's there's a lot of ethnocentrism, I guess, I think in the US, and I think I'm guilty of that myself. It's like US has got to win, US has got to win. But you bring up a good point where, like, if you ask the question, like, who won the internet, like nobody really won. Each country kind of uses the internet, like the internet just became a thing, and then each country used that. So I think the same might be said with AI, but also, like, instead of like politicians, you have the everyday person where ask them about a computer or robot, and they might have a string of like maybe like 100 different answers between the entire population, and ethics doesn't really go into it. But AI is so much different because it's not just a tool. You're going to have AGI at some point. So how do you inculcate ethics into AI? How do you go in and say, hey, this is going to be a living thing, conscious on its own, it's going to be sentient? How do you go and inculcate that into stuff that you're doing? Like, from the levels of, hey, we're going to keep these nuclear codes safe, to to shopping, which is commerce.
Yeah, I mean, shopping is a lower risk thing, right? I mean, after all, it's just about. So, for example, on our platform, we pretty much use AI to help translate media into shoppable products, or give creators an agent which they can use to talk to the brands. So it's not so sensitive. Like, it's not, I mean, what's the damage? I mean, you make a wrong shopping choice, or it's not a big deal. In terms of AGI in the future and about the sentient thing, I still don't think that computer, however smart it is as it might be even smarter than a human, but it doesn't have a soul, right? So I don't think I believe in there being a soul, and every human being just the sort of instrument of the soul. So I don't think you can ever give a soul to a computer. I think it'll still be, and that's a little bit scary also, because it's going to be trained. It can do whatever people like us train it to be. So that's where I feel like the source of the data, who's training this, and who's training it, who's benefiting it from it. I think these are two very important things that would be needed to make this not a dangerous tool in hands of some monster or something like that.
How do you define a soul?
How do I define a soul? Okay. Okay. I would say a soul is okay, so let's think about the universe, right? Like, as one big intelligent entity, and a soul is the conscious element of that. So if I think without a soul, the universe would just be particles. Soul is the element of it that can experience it. So I feel like as humans, we've come as humans to experience the world, and so we are sort of like, our bodies are instruments in the hands of the
So
overall
it's like
consciousness.
consciousness and
Yes,
sentience, the soul.
yeah, that's my philosophy.
So you said like if it weren't without a soul, the universe would be just elements, which
Yeah.
I mean that's what makes up humans: carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, like the top 5 things on
Yeah.
there. But how do you know that we're not computer code? How do you know that we're not some rollout in some advanced simulation?
We could be, but then we are not. We are not. I mean, yeah, I'm not discounting the possibility, but I still feel like we have a sense of what feels good and what doesn't feel good. And typically, what feels good is what is also good for the common human race, right? Like you do a good thing, you give something to somebody, or you do a good deed, or you have a positive emotion. It feels good, and typically all these feel good things are the things that benefit society in general. So I think there is that element in us which is that awareness, conscious awareness, which promotes the long term good versus the short term pleasure kind of things. So that's why I feel like it's just like an intuitive feeling that there is more than that, we are more than just a toy. Because I mean, I can't just say, oh, I can't help doing this because you know what, I'm a program, and that takes away the responsibility from humans if we just consider ourselves to be toys, because we are not. Like uh, probably I think there's a nice philosophy I was listening to which says that like if we were just our memory, we would our memory is tuned to is basically something that makes us defensive and protect ourselves, right? Like I fell down when I walked, so if I keep remembering that I fell down when I walked, then I would not walk again because I'd be scared of falling. But then you have the second sort of intuition which sort of can overcome that. So your first instinct versus the voice that speaks to you, I think that voice that speaks to you is the soul, is from the soul, right? That's the forward looking, that's the intelligent, ever powerful element, I feel.
So I have 2 responses to that. There's one where I've seen a documentary where this lady that she had a horrendous car crash where she was making like a left-hand turn. So after that, she doesn't make left-hand turns. She would go up the next block, turn right, and then turn right again because 3 rights make a left.
Yeah.
And obviously that car crash was so traumatic to her, it rewired her brain to never do that again.
Yeah.
Why most people don't do that is because when you walk and fall, it's not really that traumatic. There's so many other positive experiences that you have with walking that and everyday life. But then you take a look at, I forget the rest of what I was going to say. It was
Never mind.
the last part you were talking about. Can you repeat that if you remember?
Yes. So I was saying that the first instinct versus what there's like a guiding voice,
Oh yes.
which can
Okay. Yeah.
correct, right? Like you're going to do something, like you're going to steal a candy because your instinct is, I love candy, and my hand goes there.
Yeah.
But then there's a voice that tells you, no, don't do it. So that don't do it voice, the other voice, which is I think comes from your soul.
So, have you played video games at all or in recent history?
A little bit. I mean, we used to have like LAN days in my previous career. Yeah, we used to have like a whole group of people get together
So
in
I
a,
like love video games, Zelda, Star Wars, Yoshi,
yeah,
Mario.
yeah,
But back in the day, 20, 30 years ago, or 30 years ago, it was just like a 2D side scroller. There was no dialogue. There wasn't a ton of choices.
yeah,
But over the last couple of decades, they've gotten more complex, and you kind of can choose where to go because it gives you options of dialogue. And this might be more deep of an inside look at me than anything else, but I've been on like these beautiful sites where like not the Grand Canyon, but like the Grand Canyon, and it's just beautiful. And you go to the edge, and there's that tiny little voice that's like, you should jump. And like obviously you don't listen to that. Like obviously be like, you should push him off. Like you don't listen to that, but that is an option. Like it feels like a video game where it feels like that's an option in a video game. And of course you would never choose that. I think people would never choose that. But do you ever have that little voice that says like, I could just drive into this tree right now? Like, is that Is that, like, again, that might just be a mental health thing on me, but I feel like other people have had that as well. And just what does your inner voice say? Does it ever give you
I
those?
think I have the opposite thing, right? Like it's like I know that I'm gonna like leave my phone in some place, and it's gonna get lost if I leave it there. And I've had this time momentary instinct that I shouldn't do that, but then I just like ignore it and move on, and then I'm like, oh, I should have listened to that. I should have,
But
it's
your
the
voice
other
is
way.
helpful.
I don't think I have the instinct to say, okay, jump, run into the tree. I'm really scared of heights. So for me, it's the other way. I'm like, Tina, it's okay. Everybody's doing it. You can also do it.
So your voice is helpful. Like it gives you positive reminders.
Yeah,
Mine is the complete opposite.
that's so funny.
So I guess when we're talking about the inefficiencies of humans like myself, there's this going to be this timeline where you have the artificial general intelligence like AGI that gets really, really good and will likely rival, and then just at some point it'll be better. What's your timeline for AGI? When do you think that's going to happen on a consistent basis? Because obviously it happens a lot now, but not so much that it's better. When do you think that happens on a consistent
I
basis?
think people have stopped talking about AGI now because there's a realization that you don't necessarily want like an every know everything kind of scenario. It's more like specializing. It's more like, okay, can you make the AI so good at diagnosing cancer, or can you train it on so much of this specific? So can you make like a very specialized AI for each function? That's why the talk of AGI has shifted to agentic AI now, where there's an agent to do every kind of thing, and then imagine like a network of agents that can talk to each other. So you have like a doctor agent, you have an administrative agent, you have a marketing agent, and each thing gets trained specifically on its data and on specific functions. And I feel that's also more useful. Like the other one was more like a fancy project, just like a curiosity project, but I don't think it serves much good compared to the specialist AI that can do specific things. And that also leaves us humans a role, right? It's like I can outsource some of my work, but I don't want to like I don't want to talk to a robot instead of talking to my friends. I'd rather still talk to my friends, but I'd like my robot to take care of certain things which I don't care to do.
So I want to focus on where you said I'd rather talk to my friends than my
Yeah.
robot,
Yeah.
but like you said, like is that the line where you draw it? Like I saw this one billboard like years back where it showed a bunch of animals like horses and like animals that you probably shouldn't eat, and then animals that you generally do eat, and then it's like, where do you draw the line? And then someone took a picture of it and they drew a line where it's like, okay, don't eat dogs, don't eat cats, but eat pigs, chickens, like that's
Right.
where. So are you saying that you would rather have the legit in-person or video conferences with your friends and family and loved ones, and everyone else you just rather not talk to? Or is it like, well, they could talk to me if I don't know them, but they want to talk to me about something about business or something that I'm interested in? Where's that line drawn on because you could essentially cut out billions of people in the world that you would just choose to never talk to again. And that might be a good thing because a lot of people waste time, but
Yeah, I don't see it as a communication tool or like a substitute to human communication. I see it more like I feel like in the last like 50 years or more, we've become robots, right? Like we've become robots of the industrial revolution. I mean, before this, like 100 years ago, we had I think we experienced nature, we were out in the world, we were on our feet, we did things, like I think the life was probably wholesome in some ways. And then we got into the industrial revolution and we became like parts like a cog wheel, right? You get into job, you get to work, and before you know your life is over, you've not experienced it. I feel like I personally feel like I would like to delegate some of those like mundane stuff to robots or AI, and then I would reclaim back my time, or the creativity or things that are more like enriching to my own life. Than That's how I see it. So it's more about meaningful conversations with humans and animals and nature, and the not so meaningful, just get it done kind of stuff outsourced to AI. Does that
I've
make sense?
been yeah, I've been everyone's talking about the translation apps. I guess there's this big Apple says by late 2026 it'll have the like they're trying to be first place in wearables, where right now the big things they're like kind of heavy and they
Yeah.
give you a headache a little bit. But they say by late 2026, probably mid 2027, they'll have these wearables that'll have, you know, people can come in from whatever part of the world and they'll translate the language in like seconds, and you essentially won't need to know any other language because you'll have that.
Yeah.
Um, what is the probabilities that people's language skills in the future, like right now, everyone, like people in Europe kind of make fun of people in the US because, oh, you only know one language, and most people in Europe know 2, 3, 4 languages.
Yeah.
What are the odds that people in the like when I was a kid, teachers would say, oh, you're not going to have a calculator with you everywhere, and now we do, so nobody
Right.
really needs to know math anymore.
Yeah.
What are the probabilities in the future that we have a universal language, and it's just one language because AI can translate for us?
I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's just like any new technology. There'll always be the use cases that are less significant earlier first. It's useful, of course, to have a translator. If I go to travel to Russia or a place that I don't know the language, then of course I'd love to have a translator. Like if I'm going for a short trip. So I think that way it sort of helps you become more global because those barriers are removed. But in terms of, I think the value of speech and knowing languages won't go away. I feel like people will start going back a little bit more to discovering their roots, discovering language. These are sort of legacies of the human civilization, right? Hopefully, my hope is, again, being an optimistic, is that these things won't disappear. Even today, like if you send a greeting, somebody will say, hey, did you do chat GPT or did you actually write it out? So people ask you, right? So I
I
feel
get
like the
asked
whole
that.
these are also things that are going to come now versus in technology. Like it's initially a discovery period where people don't know what are the problems, but very soon enough we are discovering, okay, this is going to be bad if we don't fix this. So I feel like digital identity, in terms of, okay, me signing off that this is AI versus human, or this is AI but this AI is inspired by so and so, that digital authenticity part will come. It's already being talked about. Like I was talking to you about Hedera, and on Hedera they're already talking about authenticity, digital, signatures, being able to give credit to the artist for the real work versus a generated piece of work. So I think people are sensible enough to know the problems that will happen if you just let it go freewheeling on its own.
I feel like the people that would rather choose, like back in the day, I feel there was a couple of older people that I knew that would not buy products that were made in China. They're like, no, I want to support, and they would only buy American products.
Yeah.
And I feel like now the older people, like there's a couple older people that I know that have taken an Uber like twice, and they're like, no, because don't get in the car with strangers. That was the thing 30 years
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
And nowadays, I feel like a lot of older people would definitely be against AI, of just like, no, I want to watch a movie made by humans.
Yeah.
But I think that's also those older people, they most of them can't tell the difference between AI videos. And I feel like anyone like 30 younger can get it like immediately. But
Yeah.
me at 34, I have to like look at it for a minute and be like, where are the
Yeah.
fingers? What else are they doing? Google has spent about like $75 billion on it. They've spent a significant amount of money. And Elon Musk says that you should play to win, or you shouldn't play at all.
Yeah.
So for AI and everyone that wants to be the winner, like, what does it take to win? What do they have to do?
So I would say first, like, okay, if you are let's start with a small business. So if you're a small business, you absolutely must leverage AI tools to simplify administrative work, to filter out all the noise, and like you, for example, lead generation, whether it's communication, like basic communication, whether it's finding customers, customer support. I think a lot of that can be handled by AI, and it's a great opportunity to get to level playing field with the larger businesses, because you have you now can, right, you don't need to hire like an army to do a lot of things. So I think that's like absolute must for any business to survive. As a
Mhm.
human being, I feel like, yes, for searching for anything, any information, products, doing research, like use it, it's there for you to use, so you should absolutely use it, and be able to save time on that. So yeah, that's what I would say. Did I answer your question, or did I miss something? I'm not sure.
I think you got it.
Yeah, that's. I just think that you must use it to save time, and I'm like, use it to do things that you don't want to do otherwise, and then so you get time. Like
So
I,
if
I
you
feel like you had the internet, and you had initially it was okay, and early adopters out of curiosity came. Then it's like okay, a lot of people found it useful, and then they came on it, and then they like the online businesses did it better than the physical only businesses. And then the second next gen, now you have Gen Z, and then there came like a slump where it's like, oh no, now everything costs too much. You have kids only watching your phone, your social skills have dropped, depression has increased. So all the bad effects have come. Now I feel like it's again an opportunity to improve things, because you don't need to be on your phone all the time. You can, you have hands free, you have voice communication, you can if you have those glasses, you can find the way. You don't have to be like looking at that small screen all the time. So I feel like it's like these waves of correction come, and every time technology gets to like a bottom pit, and then it goes up from there. So feel that's how it's going to be here also. We'll have a lot of ill effects, but then eventually,
have
hopefully.
have you heard of dead internet theory?
Uh-uh.
It's the theory that most accounts and most traffic on the internet like isn't real. Like it's just bots, and it's
Mhm.
just what now I guess would be AI or AI agents. So I was on a X Space yesterday. I don't know how much. Do you know? Have you gone on X Spaces or Twitter
Yeah, yeah.
Spaces?
Yes.
Okay, so there's the X Space yesterday was part of the discussion was about AI, and these were it seemed to be people that were middle aged, and they're very scared of it because they were scared of the fact that hey, a lot of jobs can be lost, and they're right.
It's true.
I think Tesla, like Ubers and full self driving, they're coming out in like a couple weeks,
Yes.
and I don't think Uber or taxi drivers will be needed in the next 10 years. I think that's all going to be gone. So they are correct in that, but
Yes.
I also feel like everyone's looking at the negatives and no one's looking at the positives. Where if you took a look at what happened in recent history with like the AI or the .com bubble, people that knew computers or like companies that could only advertise to their in like the local paper or in the local
Yes.
like whatever. Now
Mhm.
they could advertise to like if they were in New York, they could only
Yeah.
advertise to really one borough, but with the internet, they could advertise to 5 boroughs. They could advertise to the tri-state area,
Yeah.
and now with a lot of technology companies, if you have 4 software developers and now one person can do the work of 4 people,
Yeah.
well, you have 3 choices. You can fire the 3 other software developers and keep your one software worker. You can keep everyone, and everyone can kind of work 10 hours a week. Or if you have the work, you could recognize that, wait a minute, let's say if I hired someone for 100 grand a year,
Yeah.
but they're justifying their salary and giving me an excess of an extra 20 grand a year. Now they're justifying 180 grand a year. They can keep the employees, and then they could double down on it and say
Exactly.
like, well, if I can pay someone 100 grand, but they're giving me $180,000 in value, that would create more jobs.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you do have that cross trade of there are jobs that are going to be lost, but there are jobs going to be created. Where do you think that falls in? Does that fall in a net negative or a net positive in the future? And
Um,
also, I should mention, as things get cheaper for companies and profit margins go wide, there's going to be that competition, and they're going to cut in those profit margins and make prices cheaper, and prices will benefit the consumer.
yes.
So I should mention that as well.
Yes, absolutely. No, no, I definitely see it's net positive over a small period of time. Initially, yes, there will be a lot of havoc, because even the big companies like Google, Facebook, they're all like laying off people because they don't need so many engineers and stuff like that. So there's definitely a short-term disruption, but there's a short-term disruption in the bigger companies. In the smaller companies, there's probably there's opportunity for growth. So I think it's sort of like a level playing field, right? It's more like a redistribution. I feel like people would probably now, instead of working on certain things like administrative tasks or maybe like software engineers, they would pivot to different fields. For example, now I don't think there's a value for medium caliber software engineer much, right? It's going to be like they might as well learn a domain, like they might as well learn something like biology or marine biology or genetics or stuff that typically they don't go for, and then use the AI for the software, right? So I feel like the specialized knowledge in domains which we've never explored before, like I still feel there's so much of untapped knowledge in medicine and human body and life, like outside the earth, like planets. There's so much stuff we don't know. I feel there's more things we don't know than what we know. And I feel this is a way for us to redistribute the knowledge and expertise across different fields. I also feel like you said, the 10-hour work week, right? It's not a bad thing. Why not? Right? Like if there's enough, I feel it's like an abundance thing. If you have enough to eat and enough to enjoy life, then why do you have to work like a donkey for 60 hours and then finish your life and then start enjoying life when you're 60 or 70? So that's where I feel life will change over time because of these kind of technologies.
I love that theory, and in a golden goose case scenario, you have people that are really intelligent, but they have a bunch of kids, and maybe they're divorced, and they have alimony, and then they don't really get the time to create what they want to create and live their dreams because they have to work so much, they have so much to pay for. But there's a learning curve to that. Like in 2017, after I got out of the military, I got my first big boy job, and for the first time in my life, I was making money, and that opened a lot of doors. I could eat good food. I can afford to like really go to the gym for as long as I want. I could afford like a lot of good stuff, but I also got the good alcohol, and that led into other stuff like the good, more expensive things that I don't know if I can name on here. And it was just a learning curve because I never had that before.
Yeah.
I never knew, so I didn't know what to do with all that money, and not all of the doors that opened were good. And I think that if people go from 60 hours a week immediately to like 12 hours a week, if you don't know what to do with that time, like idle hands are the devil's plaything.
Yeah.
That might be a bad. So again, that might just be a short-term bad
Yeah.
thing, and obviously it's going to take some time to get there because Microsoft just laid off several thousand people,
Yes.
and they did it when they're the most valuable company in the world, or I think NVIDIA actually just overtook them, but they laid off like thousands of people when they have like record profits. So I think that really tests a lot of strife that's happening between the 1% and everyone else. Um, how should a lot of these companies that are going to have record profits, how do you share that? How does everyone balance that in a way where a lot of young men that are not receiving those benefits don't decide to riot and flip the board over? And how do you keep the peace in the rest of the world?
I think when you cut something, you should create opportunities too. So like I was saying, because a pure software job, pure like Microsoft sells mostly software and enterprise software, right? So maybe enterprise software doesn't need so many people anymore, but they could do like Google DeepMind, like there's brain research, and there's like so much of useful stuff that they can actually just redirect the funds to. Right? I feel like it's more about if they can possibly redistribute in different angles and grow. Like it should be. I feel like, in general, we humans, our go mission is to expand, right? Like we feel happy when we are expanding in some way or the other. Because if we, like you said, if I go from a 60-hour job to 10 hours and then I'm just sitting at home, I'd get depressed and sad. And this is like the other side of the other problem, right? Just like the rich man's problem. Like I don't have a purpose. Our purpose, I think, inherently is to expand. So when you have less of something to do, then you have to find something more to do, which is probably more valuable or meaningful or whatever. So yeah, I think it's up to us. It's up to us humans to figure out how to make this work in a better
That's
way.
fair.
And I also
Um,
feel like software can be replaced very easily with AI and coding agents and all that. But I don't think robots are yet at the level of human dexterity and capabilities. And
yeah.
I don't think that will be anytime soon. For probably, like, you can never tell, but maybe like 5 years. So I feel like the hands-on work will still have value. In fact, I tell my friends that maybe our kids should learn how to do stuff, fix things, use their hands better, because these kind of things will not be replaceable in the near term, at least.
Agreed. So you mentioned Hedera before, and your work in AI. How did your work in AI lead to your work in Hedera, and what are you building there?
Yeah, interesting. So we have always been an AI first company. Like so right in 2021 when I started, I wanted to personalize the shopping experiences for consumers and offer this to brands, help monetization of creators. So when I approached, so the idea was that um, every creator has an individual taste and set of things that they are good at, and they should be able to monetize, whether it's a game or whether it's a community or a social network. So as I spoke to a lot of creators, I found that the friction was like if I talk to an agency that has about, let's say, 100 influencers, they wouldn't want to talk to me because they're afraid that we had the tech, and if we got the access to their creators, they would not have a role, right? So I felt like there should be some trust network. There should be some way to build a community by with transparency, where everybody trusts everybody else and it's all there out in the open. So I can't cheat them, and they trust me, so that we all collaborate. So the point of Web3 was in my mind that to create a collaborative world, you need Web3. That's how I approached Hedera in 2021, and we got a grant and we built a sort of a community where people could earn NFTs by contributing to the network, and with the NFTs they could redeem perks or rewards. The challenge that I ran into at that time was that NFTs had a bad name because there were a lot of, as any technology, there were always misusers or wrong use cases that came out. So a lot of NFTs were just hype and dump without anything behind them. So there was a lack of trust in NFTs itself. So I couldn't get brands to say, yes, we will honor an NFT and give rewards, or creators to say, yes, I'm going to sign up with a wallet and because I'll get NFTs. It was a little bit too early, I
Yeah.
feel, at that time.
And
Now, in terms of Hedera, so Hedera is an enterprise blockchain, and they have council members who are enterprise members, like Google, Boeing, Wipro, like the big banks and stuff like that. So it's more about they're more of a ledger than crypto, right? They happen to have a token, but the main thing is the ledger, distributed ledger, which is very efficient and has very like a short time to complete the consensus, and fixed transaction fees. So it's a really good ecosystem for quick transactions, like secure quick transactions and stuff like that. um, so now the latest thing with Hedera is they are trying to create a trusted network of AI agents. So they call it like the yellow pages of AI agents. Now in the world that we discussed, right? Like imagine you have not 50% of the traffic is bots, and let's say that grows to 80-90%. Now what are you going to do? How are you going to trust that AI agent? So what if you could give the AI agents an identity, put them on the chain, it's verifiable, they can communicate fast, they can exchange tokens for value. So we found that our fit was this was like golden for us, because we have this concept of, okay, we give brands and creators their own AI functionality, and we want to help them, exchange value. So now what if we can put them on a network like Hedera, where everything is sort of trusted, and then there is a value exchange. And what if I can, like, let's say that I have an agent and you come and use my agent. What if I can charge you like $2 for one message? It's like a micro transaction, and it's trusted. So I
Yeah.
feel like that's the new economy, right? You don't do big deals, you do micro transactions at a large scale. And yeah, I find that very, very fascinating and powerful.
And so as CEO and or co-founder and CEO of Unthink, as we get into that, how, and you don't have to say exactly how much, but percentage wise, what's on your profit and loss, like on your balance sheet is like, you know what, instead of just having dollars and ETH, we have like 2% of our balance sheet in Hedera or 5% in Hedera. Do you have any of that on your balance sheet?
I have, okay. So right now our cash balance is in Hedera tokens, I would say, almost all of it.
Oh, bullish for Hedera. Damn.
Yeah, it is. It is
So you
actually.
really believe that Hedera is like the value
Yeah.
currently is like super undervalued to where
Oh
it can
yeah,
be.
absolutely, absolutely. I feel like they're going to grow to like 10x in a year. They're about 20 cents. They've been hovering around 20 cents for some time, but I feel like they'll easily go to $2 in a year.
Okay, and I think that's relatively reasonable because you have a bunch of these companies that are you have a bunch of these companies out in the or tokens out in the world that are they might justify a valuation of like a 10x, but you have every now and then you get like 100x or 1000x in these companies, and they almost never justify that value.
Yeah.
But Hedera or HBAR is about a $7 billion market cap, and you think that it can go to where like Solana is right now.
Yeah.
Solana's like 80 billion, but you think 70 billion, because
Yeah.
obviously like Solana's not going to stay there. In the blow off top, Solana will get to hundreds of billions, but
Yeah.
it's interesting. Okay.
Absolutely. I'm absolutely bullish about it. Yeah. I'd love to hear about your coins. Tell me about your crypto. I want to learn from you.
Okay. Yeah. So there's a bunch. So how much time we got here? We don't have too much time here.
Yeah.
Okay. So the three, I guess there's two ways to go about it. There is betting on yourself.
Yeah.
And then there is passive investing, where like let's say if I have a landscaping company and I want to invest in myself. Okay, I hire people, I buy equipment for these people, because the more equipment that we have, the more jobs we can do, the more people that we have, the more jobs we can do. And you can get modest returns that way. But there's only so much that you can grow by yourself in one company, because there's only so much land that needs to be landscaped. And a lot of times that people, sometimes there's limitations. But if you're in tech is like so much profit margin because it's so easily scalable.
Yeah.
If I'm a carpenter or I'm an artist, I'm a physical artist and I sculpt something, nobody else has my talent. Nobody else can do what I can do, and I can only sculpt one thing at a time. But in tech, you build one thing and then you automate it.
Yes.
It's so the profit margins are insane. So for that, I choose three major bags that I don't have by myself. The three major bags are VeVe's OMI, Definity's DEFX token, and DEVVE's DEVVE token. So VeVe, you just bought the first appearance of Wonder Woman.
I did. I loved it. I love it. I always used to think that I should have like a Wonder Woman logo on my hand or something to remind myself that I have a superpower. And I'm like absolutely thrilled to have it in my wallet now.
So there's a guy here. I didn't share it, which I should have, but there's a dude that he just built one of the most incredible, and I don't know how much time he spent in the metaverse, but it is like this is virtual reality. This is a metaverse, and he has all of these incredible buildings and collectibles in it. It's it's a whole other world. And we'll get to Mark Andreessen and the multiple realities later, but VeVe is a majorly disruptive industry where collecting is worth, hundreds of billions of dollars, but digital collecting, like the limitations, that the biggest problem my clients had in Pokemon cards was that their partners would say that you've taken up enough room, you've taken up a room in this house, no more. And so there's physical limitations that you have to worry about kids damaging it, you have to worry about sunlight, you have to worry about temperature. But digital collecting, I have like 1,600 collectibles on my phone. This phone can get punted out a window and it doesn't matter. The collectibles are safe. They don't degrade. And so they're majorly disruptive. They make all of them themselves. So they're very vertically integrated. They had a sale today so they're the best at what they do, as taking licensed IP from Star Wars, DC, Disney, Lamborghini, Aston Martin, Marvel, and they make high-end 3D digital collectibles. So as far as NFTs go, have you ever heard of autoglyphs?
Yeah.
Oh, you have? Okay, great. So you're actually like one of the only people that I know that have. And so there's very few of them. There's like 500 something. They are worth about just under $250,000 for the floor, per one.
Wow.
Each one costs $250,000. And I don't know if you like Star Wars or if you're into like modern media, but do you know who Grogu is?
Yes, the little.
Oh, okay, great. Grogu. Yeah, Baby Yoda. Until we knew his name, he was
Yoda was my favorite character when I was watching Star Wars for the first time. I'm like, wow, there's a baby Yoda. How cute. That's
yes. So I just made a post on X that you have autoglyphs, which are worth $241,000.
Oh my goodness.
And you have the first appearance on the blockchain of Grogu, Baby Yoda, at $235.
Wow. Yeah.
So if everyone in Web3 is like in this bubble where they're all about Web3, they're all about these different things, and autoglyphs is a big thing in Web3. But everyone lives in this fishbowl, and you take a step outside of Web3, and nobody knows what an autoglyph is. They might be, is that like a hieroglyphic? Is that this?
Yeah.
But everybody knows Star Wars, especially in modern history. So is Grogu, the first appearance of him on the blockchain, is it worth less than 1/10 of 1%? So less than
makes a lot of sense.
If that was like a dollar bill, you wouldn't even make it into the ink on the dollar bill. Like that's how much the market is valuing Grogu versus an autoglyph. And I think that is a gross misunderstanding of where value comes from. And those autoglyphs are down like 80% on the year. And Grogu like hasn't seen an NFT bull market yet. So it's very new. And I think that when it comes to understanding value, like I said, gross misunderstanding, is Grogu ever going to be worth more than an autoglyph? Probably not. But is that gap's not going to close, but it'll close enough to where Grogu might do 100x, and that autoglyph that might increase in value, but that autoglyph is not 100xing. Like it's not 10, like maybe it could 10x to go to $2 million, which sounds insane. It is insane. So I think VeVe, again, very disruptive, very vertically integrated, very undervalued, a lot of stuff that they have on there. And I'll bring this into the daCAT IP in here. You have Hailey Bieber that on the new Diddy trial, it came out that she practiced like witchcraft. She still practices witchcraft. She's practiced witchcraft for like 15 years. It's nuts. In 2014, she started like these makeup tutorials on like how to achieve certain looks. And then in 2022, she's like, why am I using all of these other products where they might give me a percentage commission, they might advertise the channel or whatever, when I could just make my own?
Yeah.
And her, like I don't think her makeup product called Rhode, RHODE, is so much better than other makeup products out there. But she started it in 2022 and she just sold it for $1 billion.
Mhm. Wow.
And it's because of the IP that it's because of her. Like Mr. Beast has the most popular candy bar in America. Have you had his chocolate bar?
No.
Don't. It's trash. It's not good at all. But it's the most popular candy bar, not because it's good, but because he has 1 billion followers. And I think that's the same thing that has happened with Hailey Bieber. And I think that VeVe, which doesn't have their own IP right now, what I'm doing with daCAT token, that's my own IP. I own that, and
Wow.
I've had 2 calls the last couple of days, or I've had multiple calls, but from 2 different companies, trying to buy it pre-revenue for $100,000. And I think what VeVe could do is, because they have these agreements with Star Wars and Marvel and Disney, is that if they build their own IP that outsells what Marvel's doing every week, which it will, because a lot of my followers will buy it and everyone will buy it, they'll have the numbers. I think that we could make in the next year a multi-million-dollar IP, and in the next 5 years, like an 8-figure, like $50 million IP. So I think VeVe is incredible. A lot of stuff on VeVe is undervalued. Their token is incredibly undervalued, and that's one company. You have and VeVe this month, or in May, had grossed almost $600,000. Most of the time, the last couple of months, they grossed like, a couple hundred, $250,000 plus. But their OMI token has like a $50 million market cap. There's a company called DEVVE, which does hundreds of thousands of dollars per month. They most of the time out earn VeVe, and their market cap is like 7 million.
Wow.
And they have higher profit margins. They have less people to pay, and the profit margins are only going to increase. And their main competitor is called Hidden Road. They're a prime broker that Ripple or XRP just bought for 1.25 billion. I don't believe that DEVVE is that far behind Hidden Road, where they'll before the end of the year, they'll likely get $1 billion offer, and their market cap for their token is $7 million. So I think that 100x is minimum. A lot of times what the company is worth, the token should be worth a multiple of that. And then DEVVE, which has a partnership with they're talking with multiple different countries about doing stuff, because if different countries will have different regulations, but they're sharding technology, which can do over 8 million transactions per second. It's the fastest blockchain ever. They have like a 40-something million dollar market cap, but they're disrupting the banking industry, where if I were to wire you money today, you might get it tomorrow, or the bank might allow you to use it tomorrow, but it doesn't actually settle for the next couple of days. The banking industry has T+2 settlement time, so it usually takes 2 days.
Yeah.
Where DEVVE, the transactions are instant, and they showed it to everyone, like it happens instantly. And that's going to be incredible for cross-border payments. That's going to be that shake up the markets. That is a multi-billion-dollar industry. That is a $1 trillion industry that they're disrupting, and they'll likely be worth multiple billions of dollars. And so will their token. But again, they're a layer 1 blockchain, the fastest layer 1 blockchain ever, and they're $40-something million right now. They're one of their new add-ons, Will Stewart, has raised hundreds of millions of dollars for other companies, and their token's only worth 40 million. That again, grossly undervalued. So those are the things that I invest in right now. But I want to get we're an hour.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
There's so much more to talk about.
There's so much more. I could have you on again, or
let's do it again, because there'll be when we start a topic, it's just gonna go on. Let's do it again.
Okay, so you have all right. Let's end it right now, because you have an appointment. Yes,
Yeah.
VeVe customer. We'll get that bread. Let's talk offline for a little bit. Thank
Yes.
you everyone for coming here and getting this bread. I love you all. Class dismissed. Say bye-bye to
Thank
Dash.
you.